On June 23, 2018, millions of Ethiopians from all over the nation came together to celebrate their new, young and charismatic Prime Minister who promised change. On a bright and clear day, in Addis Ababa's biggest square, a deep sense of hope filled the air as people gathered to support a transformation they had yearned for decades. The Prime Minister delivered an 18-minute speech met with resounding cheers and applause. Upon concluding, he returned to his seat on the stage, awaiting the continuation of the program. However, moments later, a blast erupted near the stage. A suspicious individual armed with a hand grenade had attempted to approach the leader. Though close to the blast, the Prime Minister was shielded by the selfless act of a brave individual who threw himself in harm's way. Initially, confusion rippled through the crowd, with some mistaking the sound for fireworks or a malfunctioning speaker. But the reality of an explosion quickly became clear. Prime Minister's security details swiftly reacted, shielding him with their bodies and escorting him to safety. As panic seized the crowd, the ensuing rush to escape resulted in further casualties. The explosion tragically claimed the lives of several people and left many others with severe injuries. This is the story of the attempt to assassinate the Ethiopian Prime Minister.
On that attack, thousands of people had gathered at Ethiopia's historic Meskel Square in the capital, Addis Ababa.
Chapter 1. Seeds of Hope. Following the fall of the communist Derg regime, the TPLF governed Ethiopia for 27 consecutive years under Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. After his death from illness, a new leader was elected. After a few years, acknowledging the challenges, he willingly stepped down in a rare peaceful transfer of power for an African nation. During the TPLF's rule, Ethiopia experienced a good economic growth, relative stability and safety. However, this period was also marked by a lack of freedom of speech and significant ethnic marginalization. Upon election, the new Prime Minister quickly gained public support by addressing grievances with a message of peace, love and prosperity, reflected in his party's name. Captivated by his speeches and promises, he was hailed as the long-awaited saviour, despite his recent arrival. Following his inauguration, the new leader began implementing changes. Within 3 months, a public support movement for the Prime Minister began. A rally was scheduled with government approval for the Prime Minister to speak. The public eagerly awaited their beloved leader's speech, with some arriving 12 hours early and spending a shivering night for the historic event. Chapter 2. Attack at Meskel Square. 5 individuals prepared to attack, gathering at the first conspirator's house to finalize their plan. The second conspirator prepared a police car replica to drive onto the rally grounds. They also assembled 2 F1 grenades and a smoke bomb for the assault. Their plan was simple: infiltrate the rally disguised as supporters, approach the Prime Minister, wait for the right moment, and throw a grenade to eliminate him. With their plan set, they mobilized on the day of the rally. 3 individuals traveled to the capital city with the car and explosives, meeting the 2 who would carry out the bombing. They provided the explosives and instructions on how to throw the grenade. Arriving at the square 4 hours before the rally, the 2 main attackers positioned themselves near the stage. Hours later, supporters filled the streets. The bombers bought pro-Prime Minister t-shirts and waited patiently. Later, at 9:14 a.m., the Prime Minister began his speech.
ሹመት ማገልገያ እንጂ መገልገያ አይሁን.
Addressing ethnic division and promising change. His words resonated with the crowd, drawing enthusiastic cheers.
ሀገራችንን ከወደድን የሚፈናቀል ሰውና የሚንገላታው እያንዳንዱ ዜጋ ኢትዮጵያዊ ነው ብለን እንቁምለት.
The speech ended at 9:32 a.m., lasting 18 minutes. Afterward, the Prime Minister waved to the crowd and took his seat with other guests. At this point, the bomber, about 25 meters from the stage, thought his moment had come. 13 minutes after the speech ended, at 9:45 a.m., he decided to act. He retrieved the grenade, removed the pin, and tried to throw it towards the stage. However, a watchful supporter spotted the device and intervened, tackling the bomber and grabbing his hands. Exposed, the bomber panicked and dropped the grenade. Realizing the imminent blast, he tried to shield himself. The grenade detonated near the ground, instantly killing the brave supporter and severely wounding another person who later died. The explosion's shrapnel injured the legs of many nearby. Though initially unaware, the Prime Minister's security detail quickly recognized the danger, surrounded him, and escorted him to safety. Once the Prime Minister was secure, panic erupted in the crowd. Information spread quickly, and everyone tried to flee. The bomber's car, used for early access, caught fire, adding to the chaos. People scrambled to escape, leading to further injuries. Soon, ambulances arrived to transport the wounded. Nearby hospitals were quickly overwhelmed, with off-duty personnel called in to assist. The primary bomber was injured in the blast. Although his accomplice tried to help, both were apprehended by bystanders and handed over to the authorities. The explosion killed 2 young men, aged 28 and 25. 3 others lost limbs, 1 suffered a severely injured hand, and over 160 people were hurt. However, the attack continued. A few kilometers away, the 4th conspirator tried to detonate another bomb, but it failed, and he was arrested. In a related incident, a police car drove through the panicked crowd, injuring a celebrant's leg. Angered, people threw stones at the car to stop it. Chapter 3. The Aftermath. Minutes after the attack, the Prime Minister addressed the nation live from his palace, reassuring them of his safety and urging calm.
ለዚህ ክብር ዓላማ ለኢትዮጵያ ፍቅርና ይቅርታ ሲሉ ህይወታቸውን ላጡ ወንድምና እህቶቼ ቤተሰብ ሁሉ መጽናናትን እየተመኘው.
Once the square was cleared, an investigation began. Initially, 3 individuals were arrested based on information from attendees of the rally. Later, 2 more were apprehended, totaling 5. This event significantly impacted the security forces. The bravery and sacrifice of those who intervened prevented far greater casualties. Swiftly, the Prime Minister replaced his personal security detail and guards. The city's 2nd Security Commissioner and 9 other police commissioners were jailed on suspicion of collaborating with the bombing. Suspicion also fell on individuals in the telecommunications sector for allegedly obstructing communication. 17 people were suspended and faced investigation for involvement in the assassination attempt. Later that afternoon, the Prime Minister visited the injured in the hospital. One man who had lost his leg exclaimed,
"Protect our Prime Minister. Support him. His speeches have healed me. I believe in him, and I sacrificed myself for my nation's love."
Another man, who underwent amputation, admired the new leader, stating he was happy for the sacrifice made for his country. A university student with a broken leg bone had a final exam. Offered more time, she replied,
"The explosion of resilience was stronger than the bomb,"
and completed her exam as planned. Chapter 4. Justice is served. The investigation concluded that the attack was solely the work of the 5 individuals involved, not any organization. All 5 were charged with terrorism. However, all denied involvement. After months of investigation, the 5 suspects were sentenced. The first culprit, with a prior 2-year jail sentence, received a new sentence of 23 years in prison. The second culprit was sentenced to 17 years in prison. The third culprit who detonated the bomb received a life sentence. The fourth culprit who failed to detonate the second bomb received a 22-year prison sentence. The fifth individual aiding both arrival at the scene and the escape plan was sentenced to 5 years. Initially, reports claimed a woman led the five, linking them to a larger network. However, this information was retracted. Authorities stated the 5 men acted independently. The woman, who was believed to be the leader, traveled to Kenya and then disappeared. Chapter 5: Hope and Hardship. 7 years have passed since the assassination attempt on the Prime Minister. Under his leadership, the country has undergone significant changes. Unfortunately, his initial years were marked by a devastating 2-year war with the northern province, resulting in hundreds of thousands killed and millions displaced, causing immense economic damage. Although a peace treaty ended that conflict, the fragile peace was shattered within months by another war with the Amhara region, which continues today. Opinions on the nation's current state vary. Some point to the devastating wars, soaring inflation devaluing the currency to 1/3 of its original value, widespread insecurity and investments prioritizing appearances over improving lives. Conversely, others appreciate the beautification of the capital, ambitious mega-projects including a grand palace, attractive parks, and simplified government services. Despite divided opinions on his leadership, the country's trajectory would have been drastically different if the assassination attempt had succeeded. What's your take on the last 7 years under this Prime Minister? What do you think the country would be like now if the assassination attempt had succeeded? Share your thoughts in the comments below.